We're now shifting to another U.S. company, Ocean Spray. This is a company I think doesn't require much introduction. We've all experienced their products. I have to apologize to Aravind that we don't have it available at this event. We slipped up there. We really should have had some Ocean Spray juice at this event. But it's a local company, and I didn't know much about the company until I heard a presentation by one of the senior executives 2 years ago. And I've been fascinated by the company ever since because this is a cooperative. It's an agro business, and yet it's global. It has something like a 60% share of the market of the production of cranberries. I didn't know cranberries only grew in certain places. I didn't know that we were in the thick of cranberry land here in Massachusetts. I didn't know the other big place that produced it was in Chile. I didn't know that Ocean Spray owned some of those assets in Chile. And of course, I didn't know what they were doing in China, which is what we're going to hear from our speaker. Aravind is Managing Director for Asia Pacific region within the Ocean Spray International. He's been with the company for many years, and he has led some of the initiatives within the company to open up these markets. They're in Korea, they're in China, and the interesting thing about what they've done in China is using unconventional methods to crack into the Chinese market. So when we talk about China slowing down, the story for cranberry, for Ocean Spray, is not a slowing Chinese market. I mean, their sales in China are growing. And this is, again, one of the themes we keep hearing over and over again from companies is because China is slowing doesn't mean our business in China is slowing. We may actually be exploding in China because we're a new entrant or we're a new category or we're just moving into that market, we're starting from a low base, whatever. And the interesting thing about Ocean Spray's experience, as I said, is their unconventional approaches to selling into this market. I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to steal Arvind's thunder. Aravind, Cherukuri. Thank you.
Thanks, Ravi. Thanks, folks. Pleasure to be here. Ravi kind of gave you the theme. I think I want to hit upon volatility and lean a little bit into what Alberto was saying about how P&G positions itself in Brazil to win. Ours is a similar story, but different in certain aspects. We are a cranberry cooperative. That's all we do. We are not a food company or a beverage company. We're a cranberry company. We are cranberry growers. So I'll hit upon who we are briefly, and then take you through our journey in China. That should be interesting. I'll keep it entertaining so we can all hit lunch pretty quickly. Ocean Spray is an 85-year-old North American cranberry company. For those of you here, North America has only 3 native fruit. Everything else we eat and drink in North America came to North America from elsewhere. Cranberry, wild blueberry, and Concord grape are the only 3 native North American fruit. Concord grape, as you know, is under the Welsh cooperative. Cranberry cooperative is Ocean Spray. And this is the only way this fruit has survived in the world. So we have a long history steeped in innovating around cranberry, and that's what we are. We're about $2.4 billion. So we're a fairly large cooperative, but we're small. We're small when you look at the grand scheme of CPG industry. P&G, Alberto spoke to you, their Brazil business is probably $2.3 billion. We're about the 15th largest cooperative in North America. The large ones that you probably would have heard of, Land of Lakes, for example, they're butters and dairy. They're a $14 or $20 billion cooperative. There are several large North American cooperatives. Ocean Spray, however, has the privilege of handling about 7 million barrels of cranberries, which account for a global 65% odd of cranberries. So we handle about 65% of the world's cranberries. Our cranberries come from North America, which is number 1, Canada, and recently Chile. 100% of all the cranberry grown in Chile, which was seeded by private equity from California, is all under Ocean Spray Cooperative. We sell in over 50 countries today. We have 30 different manufacturing locations, and it is a pretty big brand. We are the number 1 brand in over 5 countries that we market Ocean Spray in the juice category. So not bad for a small berry and a small cooperative from Massachusetts. How do we do this? It has to be on the back of innovation. North American cooperatives have certain limitations on what they can do in the CPG industry. It's very inconvenient for us to go out and acquire companies to grow and to expand our business if it has nothing to do with cranberries. P&G can go and acquire brands, get into new categories. For us, that's very difficult. We have to grow, and we grew based on innovation and the science behind cranberry and its healthful properties. So we have over 80 years of cranberry innovation, right from juice to dry fruit to all things cranberry. I want to take you through our story in China, which is quite unique to Ocean Spray. Ocean Spray tends to be, because it's a cooperative, tends to be fairly conservative in its perspective, in its expansion strategy, in its fiscal strategy, how it goes about acquiring consumers globally. We did something different in China. We took this path about 3 years back in earnest, and it's been a very interesting story. And in the context of volatility, it might be an interesting story for this group. I want to lead off by taking a departure from few speakers here who spoke about macroeconomic aspects of these markets, these emerging markets, which tend to be forecasted in a negative way. And I want to take a moment to listen to somebody, and I wouldn't paraphrase them as much. It's a Goldman Sachs analyst on consumption. So it's a different way of looking at these emerging markets, and I want to take 2 minutes to listen to this video on consumption in China.
China today is already the world's second largest economy. It accounts for about 13% of the global GDP. For many global consumer companies, China today is already the second biggest market besides the United States. There's a perception that the China consumption story has already played out. In the coming decade, in a way, the story is even more exciting as the next couple 100 million people see their income doubling and they're entering the middle class. So that migration will continue to be a powerful driver of the China consumption growth story.
So this is core to Ocean Spray strategy. We don't look at the capital aspects and the shrinking or some of the challenges, the macroeconomic challenges in these markets. It has to do with consumption. And we look at people who are able to buy consumables between $10 and $100 a day. That is really the core of consumption that we are interested in. And what he just alluded to is exactly who we are interested in. These 200 odd million people who are going to come into the spectrum of purchasing between $10 and $100 a day of consumables, right? If we look at our US business, today Ocean Spray does about little under $2 billion, $1.7 billion of business in the United States. We address really about 60 million households that Ocean Spray, whether through its dry fruit or through its cranberry juices, are consumed within about 60 million households. These households spend on aggregate about $3,700 a year on food purchase through grocery, right? China today, the relevant households that would potentially be interested in Ocean Spray is 150 million. These households anomalously spend over $4,000 on food purchase a year. So if you look at what this market presents for someone like Ocean Spray, it is already much larger than United States. So if you're doing $1.7 billion here in the United States, we should be almost double of that in China if we had actualized our strategy, right? So this is what is most important for us. What are other companies in our industry doing? Starbucks today has a $3 billion business in China. Their US business is about $12 billion, about 4 times the size. So they also see this. If you go and ask people in Schulz's team what their strategy is. It is leading off with growth in China, because the US business is not going to grow from $12 billion to $24 billion, but the Chinese business will go to $12 billion. Coca-Cola, $20 billion and $5 billion in China today, but growth is in China. And the biggest food company, our industry, Nestle, $7 billion, again, about four times more is the US business. But all these businesses, China is going to be bigger than the US in the next decade in terms of consumer market. And that is really what we are driving at. And a lot of these macroeconomic factors are not necessarily going to curtail this consumption. An interesting perspective, and this is really how we went about looking at penetrating or cracking through in China. Today, if you look at internet users, e-commerce consumer base, people who purchase on e-commerce, 2/3 of all US e-commerce, let's say, people on the internet purchase on e-commerce, 140 million. The absolute number in China is the same, which is about 1/3 of Chinese internet users. But if you look at 2015, and this is already history, it's actually equal or more right now. 520 million people will purchase on e-commerce in China. So that is, if you draw a Venn diagram, that's a superset of these consumers who are going to double their consumption. They're all buying on the internet. And this is driving a huge change in Chinese retail. And my question to Alberto were similar. In Brazil, large format hypermarket stores are changing into smaller format stores because people don't want to spend $200 and hold consumables in pantries. They're buying every day. So the formats are changing, but consumption is not. Overall consumption is growing. Ocean Spray went about this slightly differently. If we break our business today, it is very different from anywhere else in the world. Our largest global customer is Walmart. Walmart to Ocean Spray is about a $260 million customer. In North America, which is the largest business for us globally, same with UK, our more advanced markets, we're a center aisle retail grocery company. You don't see us that much in 7-Elevens and convenience, smaller formats. You go to the grocery store, you'll see Ocean Spray. China is very different. In China, we approached this with the aspect of where is this consumer going to purchase, and it was all on e-commerce. 80% of our Chinese business today is on e-commerce. Only about 10% is in retail grocery. And we do partner with Walmart, we do partner with RT Mart, Carrefour. All of them are big global retail partners. But really, we're going after the consumer. And to us, this is the core of how one can or should, in this industry, in the consumer packaged goods industry, look at a country like China. The essence is there's a lot of impediments in this consumer being able to access high quality food or groceries or consumables. There's impediments in the supply chain, there's spurious goods, there's local manufacturing quality standards, all kinds of impediments. There's also consumer credit, which is a challenge. And e-commerce in China has sort of circumvented all these impediments and taken this consumer closer to high quality consumables. And this is really, the core to Ocean Spray's strategy. We began this journey in earnest in about 2013 when our business was about $8.5 million. We sold through retailers, through distributors. Typically, we go to the market much like P&G or any of the other companies. We have distribution networks. But we spent some time to understand China and realized that cranberry juice in Shanghai was being sold at $10 US per liter because there were 4 middlemen who would have oodles of margin. And there was no understanding of the consumer. This is an absolutely new fruit. They've never tasted this fruit. There was no understanding of why they should pay $10 a liter. So it was just a model that just wouldn't work because we were so far away from consumer and consumption and we were unable to communicate. In 2014, basically, this was the big move that we made. We just eliminated all the middlemen. We said, if we want to address these 200 million odd potential purchasers of cranberry for the health benefits of cranberry, we've got to talk to them. So we need to go the hard way, establish ourselves in China by going as close to the consumer as possible and eliminate all the middlemen. We did away with all our distributors in 2013. And started approaching this market through key retail partners. Instead of selling to 50 different retailers all over China, we focused on Walmart and we focused on RT Mart, which were winning the retail landscape. The grocery store wars in China were being won by these partners, and they were big partners of Ocean Spray in North America. So we approached it through them. And then we started our journey on e-commerce. We first entered Chinese e-commerce through our partnership with Costco, which also had Costco.com in China. And that took us in that year to $13.5 million. It was not the most astronomical growth, but it brought us that much closer to the consumer. It allowed us to actually listen to the consumer and be able to communicate the cranberry story to them. The next year is when we really exploded this method of going to the market. China established this notion of cross-border e-commerce. And cross-border e-commerce is really the Chinese government allowing Chinese consumers to buy from foreign companies without paying duty or VAT, up to $100 or up to $80 US in value. So for the first time, the Chinese consumer could buy a P&G shampoo made in the United States, or they could buy Ocean Spray craisins without paying duty or VAT delivered directly to them. It was on the personal importation recognizance of the consumer. Cross-border e-commerce came to be in about 2014. Ocean Spray was a big proponent of this, and we partnered with certain large retailers, including Alibaba at that time, to enter cross-border e-commerce. Then we started expanding into domestic e-commerce. And we said, we're still not there yet. The next step we did in 2015, last year, is we launched our own store, Ocean Spray, on Tmall. Tmall is Alibaba's platform in China. Alibaba is one of the largest e-commerce company. And we actually established our own store so we could sell without any middleman, without a retailer also, no Walmarts, directly to a Chinese consumer sitting in Shanghai, Beijing, Guangzhou, anywhere. And that enlightened us. It was an education to us because we could, for example, have these consumers directly communicate with Ocean Spray. It was like having, Facebook with the Chinese consumer, and the context was cranberries. It was an incredible experience, and this is really the route we're taking to go to $34 million this year. So it's a 59% CAGR. Now, $34 million in CPG world is nothing. It's a drop in the ocean. For us, our maturity model to $100 million is really an education. By the way, we're profitable throughout this. We don't lose money in China. We make money in China. And we're going to use this to get to $100 million to establish our foot in China and learn the consumer in China. So this is an educational experience. We're staffing our company in China, boots on the ground. We have warehouses, we have a supply chain, we have manufacturing operations that we are setting up in Singapore and Malaysia in order to supply China because of the ASEAN Free Trade Agreement. And it's a whole new way of looking at an emerging market. And there's a lot of lessons learned. It's difficult to do business in China. It's difficult to repatriate monies. It's difficult to get product through customs. It's difficult for agricultural imports into China. But these difficulties are the essence of what we need to alleviate for us to be successful in China. So takeaways from Ocean Spray really is, this consumption in China, much like in India, will be unlocked. There is wealth in this country, and there's these countries, and there's groups of people who want to purchase high-quality, healthful products that are not necessarily made in those countries, right? This is a phenomena. It is going to unlock. And you just need to understand it in order to participate in that game. In India, they might circumvent 10 years of hardships that the retail environment in China experienced, and they might leapfrog and go the e-commerce route very quickly, within 2-3 years. But the consumption is what is going to drive that. The middleman we found, in a lot of countries, our European business is in a partnership with Coca-Cola. Our Latin American business is a partnership with Pepsi. There's a great value that Coca-Cola brings to Ocean Spray in terms of its distribution infrastructure. Same with Pepsi. So there's a value addition in the partnership from each player in the partnership, and there's a total value being delivered to a consumer. In China, we found that not to be so true. We found that the middlemen were not really adding value, but they were just taking margin. And that to us is more of an impediment. So we moved away from that. The other thing is focus. You look at Kraft today, Kraft or Heinz, they're both combined today, but all these companies that target food and beverage in China, it behooves us to focus. 1.4, China is not really one country when you look at it from a consumer package. It's an agglomeration of 20 different countries. Shanghai is 20 million people, Beijing is 20 million, they're totally different countries. So we are very focused. We don't really want to or care to, or we will never be successful addressing 1.4 billion people. We're only interested in about 100 million to 200 million people, but this segment will probably become 300 million in the next 10 years. Focus is core to our strategy. E-commerce. As these consumers purchase, three things drive all purchase. It's value, it's convenience, and it's safety. And e-commerce in China provides those three aspects to the consumption equation. So really for us, that is core. And in each of these markets, it's important to understand what are the three things, those three things, and how the retail environment is going to transform to cater to those three things so the consumer's needs can be met. Localization. Initially, we started off with our products being all English, to incorporate this North American heritage into the consumers. And slowly, we're beginning to communicate a lot more in Mandarin. We are beginning to incorporate some limited amount of Mandarin into our packages to be able to better communicate the usage of cranberries, where you can incorporate it into your native cuisines and stuff. So I think the learning for us in 3 years in this, it's really a maturity model for us. Focus really is key. Go after the consumer, not so much after the big retailers, because there's a battle of middlemen in the process, and gradual localization is important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. I wanted to ask you if you could elaborate a little bit more on this process of educating the local consumer in China, and whether some of those processes that you put in place, those discoveries that you had along the way, you think might be transferable also to other contexts, other markets?
Sure. For us, it's particularly important because cranberry is a non-native fruit. So if you just put cranberry juice, it is actually one of the most acute tasting juices. So if you taste test it, it's not like Coke versus Pepsi. People will not, they're polarized. They either love it or hate it. Most people will actually hate it based on taste. So you have to educate the consumer. You have to tell them where the cranberry comes from, how it's good for you. And the medium of communication is very different. They don't have Google. So you have to use Baidu, for example. It is a completely different model of communication. TV is not that effective in this group because you're spending a lot of money and spreading communication which is not really relevant. So you have to be in the digital space in China, same in South Korea. But the essence, core of our communication, Ocean Spray, is all about taste, health, and heritage. And those are the three pillars that we wish to communicate to the consumer and bring cranberry to be relevant to their daily lives. This is going to be true in every country. If I look at our business in Australia, we communicate, albeit in a different medium, but the essence of the communication is the same thing. We educate the people about the fruit, the taste, the health, and the North American heritage. And that's really how we go to market in these countries. It's a little simpler for us because all we are is cranberry. When you look at bigger companies, even in the food and beverage space like Coca-Cola or Pepsi, they've got a plethora of brands, so their communication models could be complicated.
Thank you for the presentation. It was great. Instead of deciding for a manufacturing plan in China, where you're going to see that tremendous growth and that potential, you instead pick a place in Singapore, which is usually more expensive.
Yep.
And
Good question.
There must be a lot of things behind that.
Yeah, good question. Did you know that Chinese consumers actually read barcodes? Have you ever read a barcode? No, you find people in a store who'll pick it up and read a barcode. It turns out that, I'll just give you an anecdote. For a liter of juice, anything imported into China could retail for about $2, $2.50. If it's made in China, it would retail for 50 to 75 cents. It's number one. People, the number one reason for purchase of food in China, the one major factor is food safety. It's not even health. Chinese don't trust their own manufacturing supply chains in China. So all these are contrarian to what Ocean Spray wants to stand for. High quality, North American native fruit. So if it's a North American native fruit, what are you doing making it in China? So there's a lot of aspects to that. And then recently, with the inception of the ASEAN Free Trade Agreement and the Singapore Free Trade Agreement with China, it allows us to expand manufacturing for beverages, especially into those countries, and still be imported into China.
Thank you. Being a Cape Codder here, how's the taste been accepted of cranberry in European markets, and how they have accepted our farm practices on cranberry, as cranberry is very labor intensive if done traditional ways?
Sure. European markets, our biggest business in Europe, UK and France, is predominantly around beverage. So juice in cranberry consumed in the juice form is really the largest in Western Europe. In Asia, however, it's in the dry fruit format. 80% of our revenue in China is in craisins. It's not in cranberry juice. Dry fruit is naturally considered healthful in China. In fact, contrary to most other categories, the highest price paid for dry fruit actually is set in China, whether it's almonds, pecans, raisins, and craisins. They set the world price in dry fruit. And so as a category, we are most interested in dry fruit. And it is also the easiest way for us to introduce a new fruit because you actually see and feel and can actually associate yourself with the fruit rather than. So historically, 10 years, 15 years back, we always used to introduce the brand through juice. And we realized that in Latin America, in populations that have never seen, heard, tasted, felt a cranberry, it was quite challenging. It would take us 5 years, 10 years of investment to educate the consumer. But with craisins, we find that in 2 years, we can communicate as much about cranberries.
Can you tell us a little bit about the process by which you got rid of the middlemen in China? Because my understanding is that the Chinese are fairly protectionist and they want to keep the middlemen.
You've got to shrink your business. In order to, so if you go to a distributor and you're selling to 10 retailers, actually distributors don't sell to retailers, they sell to wholesalers. And wholesalers sell to retailers. If you look at that network, you've got distributor, wholesaler, retailer. You're perhaps somewhere hidden in some shelf among 400 different stores. You've got to say no at that point and say, I only want to work with Walmart. That's all I want to do. So you have to shrink your footprint substantially, take a step back and establish your core. and from there on expand. Then after Walmart, what's my next? Carrefour. Can I do business with them directly without any middleman? So really, it is finding that focus and taking a step back and saying, I will only partner with one or two companies that have the ability for me to reach the consumer.
Sorry. I'm from China, and my question is that can you share with us some specific challenge you've met in marketing your brand and competing with the local brands in China? Because as a Chinese customer, on the one hand, the imported goods are more expensive than the local brands, and on the other hand, it may have something to do with the Chinese lifestyle, their habits. Because I wrote a small essay about a dead brand called Zest of Procter and Gamble. It made dead about 10 years ago in China because Chinese people usually took a bath in the evening rather than in the morning, so it did.
Yep.
Yeah. So
You're right.
have you
I mean,
ever? So what strategy did you take?
you know, we have a simple strategy. 65% of the world's cranberry comes from ocean spray. Almost 90% of cranberry going into China today is some way, shape, or form from ocean spray. We don't compete really in cranberry space, but we compete when it comes to, let's say, somebody wants to consume blueberry. You know, that's really where the competition is, to convert purchasers of other power fruit into cranberry. So for us, you know, the most important thing is to educate them about the novel aspects of this fruit, right? And whoever sells cranberry into China or does anything with cranberry in China, in the long term, ocean spray benefits. So we are not averse to educating the population about cranberry. Cranberry, the fruit, the urinary tract health benefits of cranberry, and so on and so forth. And it's okay if other people want to produce beverages and foods. That's really the essence of a cooperative. You know, it is about educating the country about the fruit. And in the long term, we will stand to benefit. Does that?
How long to get to 100 million? And what's the highest you think you can do in China?
You know, my boss will say next year. But in earnest, you know, today, I think we estimate that we actually sell to no more than about 5 million people in China. So the way to look at this is, if I have a consumption opportunity of, say, 100 million people, that's my, you know, 5 million people, I'm making $35 million. You can do the math, you know. The question is, how quickly can I communicate and grow? So right now, we look at awareness. So cranberry as a fruit, awareness, and we have research that measures this. As of last year, 2014, end of 2014, it was 11%. Aided awareness of cranberry. If you go to any one of tier 1, tier 2 cities in China and poll a population and say, are you aware of cranberries or do you know what they do? 11% would answer saying yes. As of end of 2015, it's 41%. So we are selling only to 5 million people. So you can imagine if 41% of 100 million people are aware of cranberries but are not purchasing cranberries, that's our opportunity. Can we go to $100 million? Probably in 3-4 years, you know, not more than that. Where can we go? In earnest, I think if we continue on a solid trajectory, the phase 2 aspect of it, $100 million to $1 billion is the challenge because it requires a different maturity model.
A quick question. If the numbers turn out the way you figure it, are you sure you can produce enough cranberries?
Do you want to be a grower? Yeah, I think, you know, I think there is enough cranberries within the cooperative for us to sustain long-term growth.
So where are the cranberries grown today? Do you plan to?
Cranberries, most of our cranberries are North American cranberries. Either, U.S. is, of course, the biggest. Within the U.S., Wisconsin is the largest. It used to be, many, many years back, it used to be Massachusetts. That's the origin of the cranberry fruit. Today, it's Wisconsin, then New Jersey, British Columbia. A lot of these growing regions contribute to most of it. But 11% of our cranberries come from Chile today. Chile, as you know, has the most number of free trade agreements in the world, including one with China, which purchases copper from Chile, that allows us to actually produce and deliver an agricultural product into China without duty. So it is a long-term strategy.
Have you learned, I know China is leapfrogged the US in terms of e-commerce for a number of reasons, as you showed the statistics. Have you learned anything about selling through that channel in China that you maybe can use in the US?
In the US, typically we like to see, feel, taste, touch our food, and we can afford to do that. During a work day, we can drive to any one of our retail supermarkets and have a pleasant food shopping experience. When you take that out of the equation, then e-commerce will prevail. So e-commerce is big in the United States, but food in e-commerce is not that big. There's some countries that stand out as anomalies. If you want to buy food of high quality, quickly, safely in China, it's got to be done through e-commerce. If you want to drive, in Shenzhen to your grocery store and buy, stock up on your weekend groceries, that's like half a day of work for you. It's just impossible. So these countries have different challenges that allow e-commerce to leapfrog. Now, Japan has a very interesting challenge. Japan has an aging population, and they're unable to shop the grocery stores anymore. In fact, the largest retail real estate owned in Japan is through 7-Eleven and Family Mart convenience stores. There's almost 80,000 convenience, or maybe 50,000 convenience stores in Japan today, and they don't know what to do with the bottom two shelves because people are not bending. It's a true problem. If you study Japanese consumption, it is a challenge. What do you do with that shelf real estate? And that is why e-commerce in Japan through Rakuten and Amazon is taking off quite rapidly, convenience.
If they consume more cranberries, they'd be healthier and be able to bend. And
there you go, Ravi.
Well, I was just hungry before the session. Now I'm also very thirsty.
Thank you.
Aravind, this was terrific. Thank you.